as an important intervention by citizens of this country on the state of affairs of our country leading up to the 2027 election. As most of you know, my name is Oby Ezekwesili, and I am the founder and chair of the board of the School of Politics, Policy and Governance, known as the SPPG. As Wale began to say already, it is important that we're gathered today to basically have a conversation around the prospects and the fears that currently define the journey to the 2027 general elections. It is quite evident that years after, our democracy has degraded to a charm. In all the indicators that define functional democracies, we absolutely do badly. Our democracy since 1999 has steadily lost the confidence of citizens, but at no time has it been this bad. As a matter of fact, by 2023, when only 23% of registered voters voted in the presidential election that formed the current administration, it was very clear that we had departed from even the low average that is known across Africa, which is about 47%. And compared to the data for the world, we were less than 3%, we were less than 1/3 the voter participation in elections. Ladies and gentlemen, it comes from the distrust of public institutions that are saddled with a mandate to conduct credible elections. I will come to that again. But I think that the key reason that we as citizens are gathered today is to look at how we create the solidarity for ensuring that our democracy does not collapse completely. It is edging there based on the indicators that define democratic societies. We no longer qualify to be called, to be assumed a democracy properly so-called, as the lawyers are wont to say. One major crisis is the increasing use of state power against dissenting voices, whether they are dissenting political voices or they are dissenting citizens who criticize the way that governance is being undertaken. Repeated allegations and proven cases of intimidation, of harassment, of arrests, especially by those who like to show off their democratic credentials. It is a cause of deep concern. In a democracy, citizens must have the liberty to exercise their right to voice. And to the extent that we're leading on to 2027 elections and citizens operate under the morbid fear that their voice will be muffled and their freedom violated, should give every one of us reason to worry. We have a tendency to think individually as a people. You hear Nigerians say, very terrible thing, Nigeria has happened to me. Why do they say that? Because when Nigeria possibly happened to others, it meant nothing to them. They could not be bothered. Nigeria was okay until Nigeria happened to them. It is this culture of not thinking about the other person that has created a basis for a monopolization of the collective right of citizens of this country by a few. Because for as long as it happened outside of our own personal injury, we could not be bothered. The word and the operative word of this gathering today is solidarizing. I think it's a case of poetic license. But just imagine that we're talking about a solidarity amongst Nigerians who are saying there is a country to save. There's a country to save. And that it is important that collective action will successfully ensure that Nigeria does not get into the collapse that politicians of all hues and ilk seem to be comfortable to see happen in our country. Democracy is a system that enables competition, because the basic thesis of democracy is that the cornerstone of competition enables the best that can solve the public problem, or the public problems, as the case may be, to emerge unfettered by any form of shenanigans by those with the responsibility for ensuring fair competition. The credibility of any electoral process is in guaranteeing competitors a playing field that is transparent and that is equal. Unfortunately, that seems to not be the case anymore at all. What we have heard in the last couple of months have been defections from parties and intra-party quarrels and conflicts that have often been alleged to be instigated by the government. Now, to the extent that the Nigerian people have a right to choosing those whom they best believe would serve their purpose, such actions negate that basic tenet and bedrock of competitive democracy. It is part of what we would consider in our gathering today. Ladies and gentlemen, public confidence in electoral credibility depends heavily on the trust that the citizens, the electorate, have in the electoral umpire. In our own case, INEC, the Independent National Electoral Commission. It depends on the confidence that the electorate have in the judiciary and in the security agencies, as the case may be. Allegations of political interference, inconsistent judicial rulings on electoral disputes, and the deployment of security forces during even party meetings do nothing to increase the confidence of the people in our democracy. There's growing anxiety that our elections have entirely been purchased and that nothing else matters in our democratic processes than loads of money. And when you remember that none of the politicians have shown evidence of generational wealth before they came to public reckoning, then it becomes clear to you that there is a strong correlation between the level of public corruption that has reduced Nigeria to as close a failed state as can be defined by the global measure that ranks countries in terms of their fragility or strength. Nigeria has persistently declined, and today we're within the range of the 13th or the 14th most fragile of countries. It just takes a tiny little push and it goes into the category of failed state. I do not think that any Nigerian who cares about the generational unborn and the younger ones would fold and watch things happen in the direction that we seem to see every day. Ladies and gentlemen, is it not a shame that even the parties in opposition show no kind of affinity to the Nigerian people and their sufferings at this time? Otherwise, how can you explain that children after children have been being abducted from their schools, not rescued by the government, sometimes not even acknowledged to be so abducted, and not even a strong comradeship between the parties in opposition and the citizens of the country to say this must not happen under our watch? No. Instead of caring for these children, all we have heard have been people caring so much about their political tickets that we've seen able-bodied men crying on television. They weren't crying for families in tears over their children. They were crying because they lost party tickets. That needs to be interrogated. Because if you're crying that you lost party ticket, we should have expected you to cry even louder when terrible things, tragic things happen to the people. You pretend you want to go and govern. Ladies and gentlemen, we have gathered not as people with any kind of political leaning. We have gathered because we do have a fundamental problem as a people. Our problem is not the acronym of the political parties in our country. It's not the political parties. Our problem is a political class problem. We have a serious, fatal political class. And it has not mattered under which acronym they have projected themselves to be ready to serve the Nigerian people. What has always ended up is classic failure of governance. So in this gathering today, it hasn't mattered to me who shows up or who does not show up. What matters is that our words must go out of this hall into the larger society, saying to Nigerians, you have yourselves to save. You have yourselves to save. You have yourselves to save. It is painful to see that despite all promises to ensuring that we can safeguard our democracy, the political class continues to trample on this democracy. Let me warn the political class of Nigeria. It is one day that the people who have been destroyed over time finally get their strength to collectively act and say, enough is finally now enough. It appears that politicians have monopolized democracy and decided that it belongs to them. I must warn them that democracy does not belong to politicians. Democracy belongs to the citizens of every country that decides to be democratic. To that effect, therefore, I want to let it be known that whereas the Nigerian citizens made a strong case for electoral reforms that would have made it not necessary for the things that we have seen in the party processes that have been going on and potentially in the 2027 general elections, the obtuseness of the government and INEC to respond to the clarion call of the Nigerian people for transparent, credible processes, clauses in the Electoral Act that would have guaranteed very strong democratic principles and values. There shall come a day when the Nigerian people will truly save themselves. I thank you very much. I think that as chair, Wale, I want to let you know that we should be out of here by 3 o'clock, latest. What time is it now? It's almost 2.
3:30.
Is
By 3:30.
3:30? No, 3 o'clock. Who agrees that we should be out of here by 3 o'clock? Very good. So we're just going to cut to the chase and get it done. I think that the key thing is that Nigerian people gathered here as a remnant of those at home and other places are saying that we have had it and that enough is finally now enough. And that any democracy that is beneath the standard of what it means for citizens to know that they are voting with their rights respected and that transparently outcomes of elections will be respected by both the incumbent government and the institutions that are participating or have the regulatory role in democracy will be collectively resisted, because we cannot continue to have the future of our country, our children, they actually are using our children to tell us that we don't have government. That's what we're being shown. Terrorists are telling us that they are more powerful than our governments. And yet, our politicians see nothing wrong with that. Enough is really, truly now enough. If we do not care about ourselves, we should at least care about our children who did no harm in coming to the world through us. I thank you very much.
applause for Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.